From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, I'm Carla Gonzalez, and this is From the South. The Peruvian Prosecutor's Office has requested almost 17 years of prison for former President Alejandro Toledo for alleged money laundering. Toledo, who served as Peru's president between 2001 and 2006, is under trial for money laundering through real estate purchases in the so-called Ecoteva case. The court has renewed a request to extradite Toledo from the United States, where he reportedly lives. This latest case is also linked to Operation Lava-Jato, under which Toledo is already facing trial for receiving bribes from Brazilian construction company Odebrecht. The Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador says his country could win a trade war with the United States, but it would be a Pyrrhic victory. Earlier this month, Mexico and the United States struck a deal under which the Trump administration wouldn't introduce tariffs on imported Mexican goods. And under a joint declaration, Mexico agreed to send 6,000 troops to its border with Guatemala to curb irregular migration. Meanwhile, the United States will return asylum seekers trying to cross the border to Mexico, where they will stay until their cases are judged. Venezuela's Minister of Communication, Jorge Rodriguez, held a news conference releasing new evidence regarding corruption by the Venezuelan opposition. Rodriguez demonstrated screenshots of WhatsApp messages between Juan Guaidó, Leopoldo López, and other opposition figures, implicating them in a series of acts of corruption. The minister said that the situation has become so grave that even the media, which is typically pitted against the government, has recognized the criminal activity. This includes the financing of destabilization attempts from Colombia. The government says that the intention was never to provide humanitarian aid.
¿Dónde está el dinero de la ayuda humanitaria?
Where are the $3 million of the Venezuela aid concert? Where are they? A tweet was published about that. Juan Guaidó directly pocketed that money. There's a lot of evidence in which Juan Guaidó personally asked for that money, those $3 million. Remember, they were going to bring together $150 million, that multimillionaire English imbecile. But in the end, it was just $3 million. And they left all those workers who helped them with the stage and the sound, etc. They were never paid because they didn't use those $3 million to pay the people. A right-wing extremist says it confirmed the payment of the 2020 bonuses constitutes the first mega guiso corruption of Guaido's administration. This was said by the terrorist Robert Alonso. Calderón Berti, go and look for the blank check that you left at the hotel in Cúcuta. Go and look for it because it's a crime to issue a blank check. We have here what was posted on the Pan Am Post Spanish website with all of the forged and inflated invoices.
Cuba's foreign minister is now in Barbados as part of his official tour around the Caribbean, which began a week ago. The top diplomat took to Twitter to post about his meeting with the Governor General of Barbados, Sandra Mason. Activities this Monday started early in the day when Rodriguez paid tribute at the monument that remembers the victims of the terrorist attack on Cubana Air Flight 455 that crashed into Barbadian waters and claimed the lives of 73 innocent people back in 1976. The Organization of Eastern Caribbean States is calling for a unified CARICOM stance on Venezuela. The Assembly will also discuss regional issues and pass legislation. Raf Gonsalves from Trinidad and Tobago will pass the chairmanship to Antigua and Barbuda's Prime Minister Gaston Brown.
Otherwise, we are going to have a situation in which we are unequally yoked, which is really the situation in CARICOM. And an integration movement in which we are unequally yoked will not long survive. In CARICOM, we have important work which we are doing in functional cooperation. important work in security, foreign policy coordination, though the chaos between us over Venezuela is something which we have to sort out.
That was Ralph Gonsalves from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. In St. Lucia's, Prime Minister Alan Chastanet says climate change is high on the agenda for the OECS and said that islands in the Caribbean are unable to face the global phenomenon alone.
Unfortunately, Madam Speaker, this problem is not going to be resolved the way we would like it to be, which is that we would not have a climate warming taking place to this extent, because unfortunately for us, as was expressed by my colleague from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, there is irreversible harm that has already taken place. And so there are things that have already been lost that cannot be regained. And what we are talking about now is really survival of our society. But we ourselves have had to learn to be able to adapt in moving forward. I thought it was eloquently put by the member from St. Vincent and the Grenadines that climate warming has no prejudice. Rich, poor, big, small, black, white, Indian, it makes no difference. That this is really an issue in which we cannot fight through traditional mechanisms. That this is something that we're going to have to fight ourselves, and it's going to require us to take a lead in the region.
Chastanet also said the bloc has to be more proactive in addressing the European Union's blacklisting of several Caribbean countries. He said that this must manifest at the UN Security Council, as voting should be unanimous for Caribbean voices to be heard.
We are not expressing our egregiousness towards what is taking place
by Iranian forces. News of the additional troop deployment comes on the heels of the U.S. State Department's announcement that Secretary of State Mike Pompeo will travel Tuesday to the command center that oversees Middle East military operations. Meanwhile, Iran has accused Saudi Arabia of adopting a misguided approach and escalating tensions in the Gulf region. Tehran said that its local rival has opted for a militaristic crisis-based approach and that it is seeking to escape problems brought on by its own wrong policies. Riyadh has stepped up its rhetoric against Iran and has been backed by the President of the United States, Donald Trump, after an attack on 2 oil tankers in the Gulf of Oman last week. Despite assertions from the White House that Iran was responsible for the attack, many of Washington's allies remain skeptical. 4 people have reportedly been shot in Toronto, Canada, near the parade celebrating the Toronto Raptors basketball team's 2019 NBA championship. The Toronto police confirmed the shooting took place at Nathan Phillips Square around 4 in the afternoon local time. Authorities arrested 2 people with firearms, and medical personnel attended the injured. Footage on social media shows hundreds of people running to safety as over 1 million celebrated on the streets.
From that spot there.
Now let's look at more stories from around the world.
At least 12 people have been killed and more than 100 injured in a strong earthquake which shook China's Shandong province. The 6.0 magnitude earthquake was followed by several powerful aftershocks. More than 4,000 people have been relocated as their homes were damaged or even destroyed.
The city and counties quickly allocated all kinds of relief supplies from their disaster relief repositories to affected villages and towns. At the initial stage, 450 tents, 5,300 quilts, and 1,500 folding beds were sent to affected areas.
The Iran president says the world is praising Tehran over its standoff with the United States. President Rouhani said that the U.S. has broken promises by abandoning a landmark nuclear deal that Iran had continued to honor, adding that his country has been loyal to its signature and to international agreements.
Today we are in a face-off with America. There is no one in the world that does not prize Iran. Iran has been loyal to its word. Iran has been loyal to international agreements, and the one standing against us today is the one that has trampled all pacts, agreements, and international accords.
At least 60 people died in northeast India over the weekend from a heat stroke. In the region of Bihar, hospitals were full of patients suffering from heat exhaustion as temperatures soared to over 45 degrees Celsius. The regional government has ordered all schools to be closed until June 22nd due to the intense heat. India typically suffers from water scarcity during the summer months, but this year the situation is much worse due to the less than normal rainfall in the 2018 monsoon season.
And with that, we end our news brief. But remember, you can find all of our stories by checking our website, telesurenglish.net. And you can also join us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Thank you for watching.